Max Verstappen qualified second at Spa, missed pole by only 3/10, took the lead at the start, and still finished more than 11 seconds behind Mercedes. That sounds impossible. Red Bull had one of the strongest power units on the grid. The car was among the fastest in a straight line. Verstappen extracted everything. And yet, the moment the race settled, Kimi Antonelli pulled away. The telemetry exposed why. Red Bull had built a car designed to destroy drag, but the hidden cost was devastating. Less aerodynamic load, more understeer, weaker corner exits, higher tire stress, and a setup window so narrow that the hard tire effectively ended Verstappen's chance of fighting for the win. The engine was not the problem. The driver was not the problem. The real weakness was buried inside the aerodynamic philosophy of the car. And once that weakness appeared, Verstappen was forced to recover on the straights what Red Bull had already lost in the corners. Subscribe to the channel. That gap did not appear all at once. It was built quietly. One corner at a time. One compromised exit at a time. One lap where the Mercedes could repeat its pace, while Verstappen had to keep forcing the Red Bull beyond the point where the car felt comfortable. That is why the qualifying result created such a dangerous illusion. Second on the grid looked competitive. Only 0.317 seconds from pole looked close. Taking the lead at the start made Red Bull look capable of winning. But those moments were created under conditions that protected the car's strengths. Low fuel, fresh tires, maximum commitment. A deliberate tow from Isaac Hadjar. One lap where Verstappen could accept instability because he did not need the tires to survive afterward. The race removed those protections. The fuel load increased the demand on the chassis. The tires had to remain inside a usable window for many laps. The balance changed as the stint developed. And the same car that looked dangerous over one lap began exposing its weakness through every medium and high-speed section. That is where Mercedes started winning the race. Not only on the Kemmel straight. Before it. Through the corners that determined how much momentum each car carried toward the straight. Verstappen could still reach an impressive maximum speed. But maximum speed does not reveal how efficiently the car arrived there. The Red Bull often began the acceleration phase from a weaker exit. The engine then had to recover momentum the chassis had already surrendered. For a few seconds, the power unit repaired part of the loss. Then the next braking zone arrived. The complete time never returned. That pattern repeated across the lap. And repetition is what turns a small technical compromise into an 11-second race deficit. Imagine Antonelli exiting a corner only slightly faster. The difference may look insignificant. A few kilometers per hour. A fraction of a second. Then the Mercedes begins accelerating from that stronger position. Its aerodynamic platform remains stable. The tires grip. The electrical deployment supports the acceleration. The car continues building speed. Verstappen's Red Bull also accelerates strongly. But it starts from behind. By the end of the straight, the maximum speeds may appear similar. The stopwatch has already recorded the damage. That is why speed trap numbers can mislead even experienced fans. They show where the car finishes the acceleration. They do not show what happened before it. And Red Bull's weakness was developing before the straight ever began. The car lacked enough aerodynamic load through the corners. That reduced grip. Reduced grip made the front slide. The slide forced Verstappen to add more steering. More steering created more tire scrub. The extra scrub generated heat. The heat reduced grip further. Then the next corner became even harder. This is how understeer grows across a stint. It rarely arrives like a mechanical failure. It builds. The driver turns a little more. Waits a little longer. Misses the ideal exit by a small amount. Then repeats the process. At first, the lap time loss may be tiny. After several laps, the tire has been worked harder. The balance becomes less precise. The driver begins compensating earlier. The deficit grows. And by the time the public sees Verstappen falling away, the car has already been fighting the same weakness for many laps. That is why the hard tire was so revealing. The compound should have offered durability. It should have allowed Red Bull to extend the stint and maintain pressure. Instead, the front-end weakness became more obvious. Verstappen could not rotate the car as aggressively as he needed. The nose resisted the steering input. The front tires slid toward the outside. The throttle application had to wait. The exit became weaker. And every weaker exit gave Mercedes another small advantage. The tire lasted. The pace did not. That distinction matters. A durable tire is useless if the car cannot make it perform. Red Bull could complete the laps. It could not attack with them. And once Verstappen lost the front-end confidence, the race changed completely. He was no longer thinking about victory. He was managing the maximum result the car could still protect. That is what his post-race words meant. He gave everything. Third was a good result. That is not surrender. It is diagnosis. Verstappen understood the car had reached its limit. The missing performance was not hidden inside one unused engine mode. It was not sitting inside one missed opportunity. It was built into the way the Red Bull generated grip. And this is where the Racing Bulls comparison became impossible to ignore. Both teams used the same Red Bull powertrain's engine. Yet the main Red Bull appeared among the fastest cars in maximum speed, while Racing Bull sat closer to the middle of the field. That difference matters because it separates power unit performance from aerodynamic philosophy. If the engine alone created the straight-line strength, the two cars should have produced a more similar profile. They did not. The main Red Bull was using less drag. That gave Verstappen the speed everyone could see. It also removed part of the load he needed in the corners. The car's greatest visible strength was also evidence of its hidden compromise. That is why the solution is so difficult. Red Bull cannot simply add more wing and declare the problem solved. More wing creates downforce. It also creates resistance. The car may become better through the corners and weaker on the straights. That trade may still improve the complete lap. But it would remove the one area where Red Bull currently looks strongest. Teams do not like giving away an obvious advantage, especially when the replacement gain is harder to guarantee. The real target is efficient downforce. More grip without paying the full drag penalty. That requires the floor to work more effectively. The aerodynamic platform to remain stable. The front end to respond. The rear to follow predictably. The suspension to keep the car inside the correct ride height window. And the airflow to remain controlled through pitch, roll, bumps, and elevation changes. Spa is brutal in those areas. The car compresses through Eau Rouge. It unloads over Rydillon. Then it moves into fast corners where the aerodynamic balance must remain consistent. A car can produce strong peak load in one perfect condition. If that load disappears when the car moves, the driver cannot trust it. And trust is what Verstappen needs most. He does not drive by waiting for the car. He attacks it. He turns aggressively. Uses the front axle. Forces rotation. Then controls the rear through the rest of the corner. That style depends on immediate response. Understeer removes the first step. The steering arrives. The front does not. Then the entire corner becomes a correction. That is why the Red Bull's problem is especially damaging for Verstappen. The car is not simply slower. It is weaker in the exact area that removes one of his greatest strengths. A different driver might accept more understeer. Verstappen wants the front to bite. He wants the car to rotate immediately. When it refuses, he must alter the way he drives. Brake differently. Wait longer. Use more steering. Protect the tire. Accept a weaker exit. Every adjustment makes him less natural. And when a driver at that level cannot use his natural style, the performance loss becomes larger than the aerodynamic number alone. The car lacks grip. Then the driver cannot attack in the way that normally creates his advantage. One technical weakness becomes two. That is why Red Bull's early season struggles became so severe. In China, Verstappen described the car as undrivable. The team admitted significant shortcomings. The losses appeared through medium and high-speed sections. Then Japan showed the same pattern. The fast direction changes punished the Red Bull. Again, the engine was not the main limitation. The car lacked the aerodynamic balance required to carry speed. Different circuit. Same weakness. That repetition matters. One bad weekend can be setup. Two can be tire preparation. Several circuits exposing the same broad pattern suggest something deeper. The concept itself. And the concept had pushed too heavily toward reducing drag. That decision may have made sense on paper. Straight-line performance matters under the current regulations. Electrical deployment matters. Energy efficiency matters. But a car cannot convert power into lap time if the driver cannot carry speed through the corners. The engine produces acceleration. The chassis determines the position from which that acceleration begins. Red Bull had focused on the second half of the equation. Mercedes had built a more complete first half. That is why Antonelli could remain close. He did not need the strongest maximum speed figure if the Mercedes arrived at the straight with more momentum. He needed enough speed to complete the attack. And the stronger cornering platform created that opportunity repeatedly. This is what made Mercedes so dangerous at Spa. It did not need to dominate every phase. It only needed balance. Enough grip through the corners. Enough straight-line efficiency. Enough tire control. Enough confidence for the driver to repeat the pace. Red Bull had moments. Mercedes had continuity. And continuity wins races. That is why Verstappen's lead disappeared so quickly. Taking first place at the start did not change the underlying hierarchy. It changed the order. For a few seconds, Red Bull had track position. But the Mercedes remained within range. The car's stronger total performance rebuilt the attack. Then Antonelli passed. That is one of the clearest signs of a performance deficit. When track position cannot protect the slower car, the pace gap is already controlling the race. Verstappen could lead. He could not escape. And once the Mercedes recovered first place, Red Bull had no answer. The hard tire removed the remaining possibility. The understeer increased. The front end stopped giving Verstappen what he needed. Leclerc became the realistic target, not Antonelli. Even Verstappen's own comments about the virtual safety car pointed toward that limit. He believed the timing had hurt both him and Antonelli. Without it, he thought he might have fought Leclerc for second. That is important. Second, not the win. The neutralization affected the fight with Ferrari. It did not create the gap to Mercedes. The car did. That protects the analysis from an easy excuse. Yes, the virtual safety car changed the race. No, it did not explain why Red Bull lacked the pace to challenge Antonelli. Those are different questions. And Red Bull knew the second question was the important one. That is why the Austrian upgrade package focused so heavily on the floor and related aerodynamic areas. The team understood the problem could not be solved by demanding more from the engine. It needed more load, more stability, a better relationship between the front and rear. A car that remained inside its operating window across different conditions. The upgrades were an attempt to move in that direction. And Spa suggested some progress. The qualifying result was stronger. The car looked more competitive. The podium arrived. But the race gap remained. The hard tire understeer remained. The inability to pressure Mercedes remained. That means Red Bull had improved the level without fully changing the character. The car became faster. It did not become complete. And that distinction is critical. A faster, difficult car can still produce good results. A complete car can produce championships. Red Bull needed both. The danger was mistaking one for the other. Second in qualifying looked like recovery. Third in the race looked respectable. The 11-second gap revealed the unfinished work. The team had gained. Mercedes still had control. That is the stage Red Bull now finds itself in.